Yeah, the afternoon slump won't stand a chance when our next speaker comes on stage. Opening our afternoon is Nesrine Changuel. She's a product manager at Google and an agile professional with a passion for innovative problem solving. Her self-management and team-building skills drive projects forward. She thrives on fostering open communication and enjoys collaborating with others. Today, she's going to answer a question we might actually have already set our minds on. For her talk, Google, How to Delight Your Users, please welcome on stage Nesrine Changuel.
Okay. Oh, now it's working. Welcome back. I hope you all had a delightful lunch, because that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about. Not the lunch, but the delightfulness. So many product teams today have like a problem-solution mindset. They look for problems, and they build solutions that solve for those problems. That's important, of course. But sustainable, lasting business growth means much more than satisfying your users and meeting their expectations. Building delight into your product is what will help you drive this sustainable, lasting business growth. So my name is Nesrine Changuel. I've been a product manager for more than 10 years. I worked at products like Skype, Spotify, Google Meet. I work for Chrome now. I'm based in Paris. And I've been fortunate enough to participate in building many delightful features that participated in the big success of those products. So in this talk, I'm going to share with you some tips on how you can identify your next delightful features and how you can prioritize them into your next product roadmap. But to start, I want to start with a real story. Like last year, my family and I flew to Madeira for vacation. We were psychologically prepared for a 4-hour flight from Paris with already tired kids, of course. We got on board an Air France plane, and as soon as the boarding got completed, a crew member came to us with a big smile, and he offered very nice and cute, colorful cases. The cases contained like coloring pen, book activity, small things. And my kids got super excited about those. And more importantly, they got busy with it for more than an hour. Believe me, for those who travel with small kids, that's a blessing. I never worked for Air France or know anything about their strategy. But what I'm sure about is that that gift was not a random gift. Air France did it because they have identified it as a cheerful, delightful opportunity. But why do they do that? They do that because research shows that when you connect with your customers and users at the emotional level, the payoff can be huge. By the way, the study was published in the Harvard Business Review, and they compared the difference between highly satisfied users and emotionally connected users. So do you know how much more an emotionally connected user could engage with your product compared to a highly satisfied one? 50%. Ooh, we have someone who reads a lot of reports here. 50% more to use your product, to become more loyal, to recommend it to a friend. Should I take my earring as well? OK, I'm going to take my earring for you. Thank you. So 50% more as well to buy your product. So based on this enormous opportunity, it's very important to consider delight as a concrete piece of your vision and your strategy. In product and in tech product, we call this product delight. So delight occurs when you have a mix, or you create a mix of surprise and joy at the same time. A user is considered delighted when the product aligns with their motivation and emotional needs. We call this emotional motivation. For example, in the Air France case, my emotional motivation was to feel peaceful and relaxed during the flight. So as PM, it's very important during the discovery phase to focus on identifying this emotional motivation, what really brings happiness to our users. But these things are very hard to identify. It's very complex to know what could make our user happy or satisfied or joyful. An alternative for that could be to identify the emotional demotivators. So what makes our user unsatisfied or unhappy or frustrated or sad? Sometimes it's easier, like think about it yourself. Like we know what makes us sad and happy more than what makes us really, really happy. So here an example. When I worked at Google Meet, it happens that it was COVID time as well. And we all found ourselves during that time spending hours of our day in video calls, calling doctors, colleagues, friends, teachers, like everything. And that behavior came with a lot of demotivation, of course, such as boredom during the meeting, lack of engagement, lack of interactions, and many more. It even had a name. It was called video fatigue or Zoom fatigue. So what we did in order to address this demotivator was to create reactions. So reaction was a feature that was built exactly aligned with these identified demotivators. Reactions are faster than commands, and they're less invasive than unmuting yourself to say, hey, I agree, or I empathize, or I'm happy with you. So that was one of the features that aligned with these demotivators. Now you may ask me, how can I know if a feature is delightful or not? And the good thing is that Canoe did it all for us. I mean, he categorized features into categories. You have the must-have, or the feature that if it's not there, people are extremely unsatisfied. If it's there, users are expected to be there. Performance are the features that the more you have them, the more satisfied your users are. Delight, though, is like if it's not there, people could live with it, but if it's there, then they start to be happy. Indifferent are like there or not there, doesn't make any difference. And reverse, which is the worst, when sometimes we happen to do that as well, is that if it's there, people are unsatisfied. And if it's not there, people are satisfied, of course. So how do you know which bucket your feature will fall into? The best is to ask your users functional and dysfunctional questions. Let's take an example. You work for Airbnb, and you're building a feature about creating templates for hosts in order to help them create a description for their houses. Let's just imagine that case. You go to your hosts and users and ask them these two questions. First one, how do you feel about having these templates? And you go to the same personas and you ask them, how do you feel about not having these templates? And if it happens that the answers fall into, I like having them, but I kind of expect if it's not there and it's neutral, or I can live without it. If it's not there, then it's probably into the delight bucket. Now, let's imagine that you identified your next couple of delightful features. How do you prioritize them? By the way, one of the most common questions I usually get is like, do we need a dedicated delight team? I've been working in both environments. I have been in a fully dedicated delight product team, and I also worked in teams where it's mixed. And from my perspective, and that's only for me, I believe that it's not necessary to have a dedicated delight team. Of course, if you can, it's a luxury if you can offer yourself such a thing, but it's expensive. And if you can't, the most important thing is to be convinced about the value of delight. And be convinced that every time you do your quarter planning and you prepare for your roadmap, think about, do I have spots and time and space for my delightful features? So it's more like a mindset from my perspective, and it needs to be practiced in order to be mastered. So during my Spotify time, now I'm getting like 4 years ago, I'm telling a story here because at that specific time, we have been working on a very, very, very full backlog with must-have performance. It was very hard to squeeze in delight. And despite that competing priorities, we managed during that time to ship a couple of delightful features, such as like this canvas looping video that artists could upload together with the track, or even these like video clips that artists could upload in order to interact with their fans. And these two examples, they have been competing with a lot of other performance features, such as like changing the codec or coming up with a new technology. But we have been convinced, and the way how we got those shipped is that we allocated some space. Like sometime, I mean, it's completely up to you, but something like between 5 to 15% of your roadmap, just make sure that this time is allocated for delight. And even if it's not shipped within the quarter, it's OK that it gets shipped later on. Back to that Madeira trip that I remember very well. It was Christmas Eve, by the way. And 2 hours after takeoff, a crew member came from the front of the plane with a Santa costume, and he stopped row by row, checking on all kids on their gift list, etc. I mean, the costume was terrible, honestly. We could see the mustache coming out of the fake bird. I mean, it was terrible. If you can just see the joy and the happiness on all kids' faces. I mean, it was like a fully delightful experience, that trip, to be honest. And I don't think crew members are always traveling with a Santa costume in their suitcase, but they should have identified it as a delightful opportunity based on 2 things. One thing, the seasonality. It was Christmas, so it's a great opportunity to bring something seasonal. And the second thing, the persona. It was vacation. It was a lot of family on that flight, so it makes a lot of sense to bring in that feature. So it's very important when you prioritize your feature, think about seasonality as well. What makes it delightful today is not necessarily the case next week or next month. All right, I'm getting to the hardest now. How do you measure delight? How do you know if your feature has been delightful or not? Honestly, I'm not going to give you a lie, it's hard. It's hard, it's subjective, it requires qualitative data. But we can try, and there are some tools for that. Of course, you can start looking at feedbacks from social media or product recommendation, but these sometimes are very biased, isn't it? Like, people who are putting comments are either super happy about your product or very angry about your product, so you don't necessarily get the full range. So there's a framework that I believe works quite well in this case, which is the HEART framework. HEART stands for happiness, engagement, adoption, retention, and task success. And for some reason, there's something between task and success. Anyway, though most of them are easy to track. You can build model for them. There are tons of data information you can get on the web about them. But the hardest, the particular one, is happiness. How can you track happiness among your users for a specific feature? And the good news is that there are tools as well for that. Some tools are very famous and very well known, others a bit less. But these are, for me, the 3 most important ones to hopefully to combine them all together. Like NPS as for Net Promoter Score, CSAT for Consumer Satisfaction Score, and HATS, which is the Happiness Tracking Survey. The 3 of them are survey-based, so they are all based on interviewing users. But they have different targets. Like NPS is more for the overall branding satisfaction. CSAT, though, it's more for a specific interaction. You're in a product, you get a new interaction, and you immediately get a request for a survey for that specific interaction. From my perspective, HATS beat them all because it's a nice combination of a lot of things. Like, it's more for both and specific product perception, but also it has 2 more advantages. It collects data at a very large scale, so you try to target as many personas as possible, and also over time. And why I'm talking about over time? Because what is considered delightful today, in few days or weeks, it may become quickly expected. This even has a name. It's called the habituation effect. By the way, the best example for that, I've been working on Google Meet, and we built the background replace. And at that time, it was considered a delightful feature. Could you think today, having a meeting online without background blur or background replace, it's not delight anymore. It's becoming expectation. Why I'm telling that is because it's very important to innovate on delight. Delight is not a one-shot that you do and you're happy, I have it in my roadmap. You always need to think in your roadmap, do I have enough delightful feature for my upcoming releases? All right, I'm getting to the end of my talk, and I want to leave you with 3 things. Number 1, your users will always remember how you made them feel. And we want them to feel positive emotion, because emotionally connected users will be twice as more loyal and engaging as highly satisfied ones. Number 2, delight is not necessarily in big things. It could be in small details. So it's very important to have that in, what I want to say here is it's more like a mindset. It needs to be in your roadmap. And we need to be religious about getting this in your roadmap. Because even if it sounds easy, it's a science. It has tools and technique to be prioritized. And number 3, so treat your users as your loved ones. We want to spend time identifying their emotional motivators. We need to show them that we care and be the dressed-up Santa to get the sparkling eyes. Thank you.